Have you ever wondered what would happen if the past you tried to bury suddenly showed up at your doorstep, tied up in a wheelchair and screaming for help? Imagine, if you will, looking out your window on a quiet Tuesday evening and seeing 3 7-year-old children, tiny little soldiers with determined faces, dragging a billionaire stranger up the driveway, bound with ropes and knocked out cold with sleeping herbs. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? Sounds like madness. But my people say that when destiny wants to knock on your door, it does not always knock politely. Sometimes, it breaks the lock. This is the story of Obinna, a man who had conquered the business world, a man whose name opened doors in London, New York, and Lagos, yet a man who returned home every night to a mansion that echoed like a glamorous grave. He had money, yes. He had cars that cost more than a village school. But as he sat at his long, mahogany dining table eating dinner prepared by a silent chef, looking at the empty chair across from him, he felt the cold wind of a life without roots. He did not know that just a few miles away, in a much smaller house, 3 little hurricanes named Kene, Zik, and Adanna were sitting at a crowded kitchen table, plotting a crime that would either destroy his life or save his soul. They were tired of the empty chair too. They were tired of the bullies at school asking where their daddy was. And with Father's Day only 3 days away, they had decided that if God would not give them a father, they would simply have to go out and steal one. But be warned. What these children were about to do was foolish, dangerous, and driven by a desperate innocence that only children possess, and it would uncover a secret their mother, Nurse Neka, had guarded with her life for 8 long years. Friday is Father's Day, the teacher announced, clapping her hands. I want everyone to bring their daddy for the presentation. We will have cake and games. For most children at Emerald Elementary, this was good news. For the triplets, it felt like a prison sentence. Chitty, a boy in the back row whose father drove a massive Jeep, leaned forward. Hey, triplets, are you going to bring a photo again? Or maybe a ghost? The whole class erupted in laughter. Kene adjusted his glasses, staring at his desk. Zik clenched his fists. Adanna bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Even the teacher looked away, pretending to be busy with papers. That afternoon, the walk home felt longer than usual. Their hearts were heavy stones in their small chests. They found their mother, Nurse Neka, sleeping on the couch between her double shifts. They didn't wake her. They knew how tired she was. Sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet, they would hear her sobbing into her pillow, whispering a man's name to the darkness. A name she never spoke in the daylight. Later that evening, Kene was playing with his mother's old tablet. He was watching the local news when he suddenly froze. Guys, he whispered, come here. On the screen, a news report was playing. Billionaire CEO Obinna returns to the city. The man on the screen was wearing a sharp blue suit. He didn't smile at the reporters. He looked at his watch while they spoke to him, then waved them away like they were annoying flies. Look at his nose, Zik said, touching his own face. Look at his eyes, Adanna whispered, leaning closer to the glowing screen. He looks exactly like us, Kene whispered. They paused the video. They held up a mirror. The resemblance was terrifying. It was undeniable. This stranger wasn't across the ocean. And look, Kene pointed to the bottom of the screen. The reporter says he is dining tomorrow at the Golden Fork restaurant downtown. He is the one, Adanna declared. He is the one Mama cries about at night. We should write him a letter, Kene suggested. We should call the police, Zik said. No, Adanna shook her head, standing up on a kitchen chair. Rich people don't listen to children. If we write, he will ignore us. If we call, he will hang up. If we want a father for Friday, we cannot ask nicely. She ran to the pantry and pulled out a dusty jar labeled Grandma's Calming Tea, 4 Restless Goats. It was a harmless village herbal powder. It made stubborn goats sleep for exactly 1 hour. We have 3 days, Adanna said, her eyes shining. We know where he eats. We know he is our daddy. Operation Daddy Rescue, Zik grinned. This is not logical, Kene muttered, but he grabbed the jar anyway. Now, I must tell you what these children planned was wrong. No child should ever do this. But pain can blind even the smallest hearts, and they were desperate to be seen. The next day, the Golden Fork restaurant was busy. It was a place where rich men shouted into their phones and ignored the world around them. The triplets had arrived an hour early. They had dragged an old, rusty wheelchair from the hospital storage and hidden it in the alley behind the kitchen. Now, they waited behind a large potted plant near the entrance. Obinna sat alone at a corner table. He was barking orders into his phone. "I don't care about the cost. Just get it done." He slammed the phone down, not noticing 3 small pairs of eyes watching him. "Ready," Adanna whispered. Kene, dressed in an oversized coat, walked past Obinna's table and deliberately tripped, spilling a basket of bread rolls everywhere. "Oh no, my bread!" Kene cried out, creating a scene. Obinna turned his head, annoyed. "Watch where you are going, boy," he snapped. In that split second of distraction, Adanna moved like a ghost. She slipped past his table and tapped a generous amount of Grandma's goat powder into Obinna's sparkling water. It dissolved instantly. Obinna turned back to his meal. He took a long, deep sip of water to wash down his anger. 1 minute passed. Obinna rubbed his temples. 2 minutes passed. His eyelids felt like lead curtains. I need to lie down." He slumped forward onto the table, snoring softly. The other diners were too busy laughing and checking their stocks to notice one rich man sleeping. "Now," Adanna signaled. The triplets rushed forward. They dragged the heavy billionaire into the wheelchair they had retrieved from the alley. Just as they were rolling him toward the exit, a waiter stopped them. "Hey!" The waiter frowned. "Is he okay? Should I call an ambulance?" The children froze. Their hearts hammered against their ribs. "Uncle had too much wine." Adanna lied smoothly, putting on her most innocent smile. "We are taking him to the driver outside." The waiter looked at the sleeping man, shrugged, and walked away. They escaped into the sunlight. They tied his hands with Neka's laundry rope, just to be safe, and pushed the wheelchair all the way down the hill. Sweat poured down their faces. Their small muscles burned. But they didn't stop until they parked him in their own driveway just as the sun began to set. "He is heavy," Zik complained, wiping his forehead. "He is here," Adanna said, looking at the sleeping man. "Now we wait for Mama." What they had done was a crime. It was foolish. But they didn't know that the real explosion wasn't the kidnapping. The real explosion would happen the moment their mother walked through that gate. Nurse Neka walked up the street, her feet aching. It had been a brutal double shift. All she wanted was to kiss her babies goodnight and forget the world. She turned into her gate and froze. Her bag slipped from her shoulder, hitting the ground with a soft thud. There, in the middle of her driveway, sat a man in a wheelchair. He was wearing a suit that cost more than her entire life savings. He was tied up with laundry rope, and standing over him like proud hunters were her 3 children. "Welcome home, Mama," Zik shouted happily. "We found him," Adanna announced. "He is surprisingly heavy." Neka couldn't breathe. She walked forward slowly, praying it was a mistake. But as she got closer, the street lamp flickered on, illuminating the sleeping man's face. She gasped. A whisper escaped her lips, carrying 8 years of buried pain. "Obinna!" At the sound of his name, the billionaire stirred. He groaned, shaking off the herbal fog. He opened his eyes, blinking at the ropes, at the children, and finally at the woman in scrubs. His eyes went wide. The arrogance vanished. "Neka, what have you done?" Neka shrieked, turning on her children. "Do you know who this is? You have kidnapped a man. The police will come." "We didn't kidnap a man," Adanna said stubbornly. "We rescued our daddy." "He is not your daddy," Neka yelled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "He is the man who was ashamed of us." The words hit the triplets like a physical slap. They looked from their mother to the stranger. "I wasn't ashamed," Obinna shouted, struggling against the ropes. "I was trying to build a future. You left without a word. You vanished. Because you told your investors I was your maid," Neka shouted back. Do you remember that night, Obinna? At the gala? You didn't want them to know your fiancé was a poor nurse from the village. You hid me in the kitchen like a dirty secret. That is why I left. 8 years of swallowed pride exploded in 1 minute, right there in the driveway. I was young. I was stupid. Obinna roared, his face red. I came back the next day to beg you, but your house was empty. I searched for a year. He stopped. He looked at the 3 children. He looked at their eyes. His eyes. Wait, Obinna whispered. The anger drained out of him, leaving only a cold shock. 8 years. They are 7. He looked at Neka. Neka? Are they? Yes, Neka sobbed, covering her face. They are yours. And they did this foolish thing because of the hole you left in their lives. Across the street, a curtain moved in a neighbor's window. Someone was watching. In this neighborhood, gossip traveled faster than the wind. The driveway fell silent. Obinna looked at the 3 little faces, the boy with his nose, the girl with his stubborn chin. He wasn't just a hostage anymore. He was a father. Untie me, Obinna said softly. Please. No. Adanna stepped forward, blocking her mother. To the adults, this was a war of old wounds. To Adanna, it was simple. Not until you promise, she said firmly. Friday, Father's Day. You have to come. The living room was quiet, but the air was thick enough to choke on. Neka had untied Obinna, but she hadn't invited him to sit. He sat anyway, rubbing his wrists, his sharp eyes scanning the small, cramped house. It was clean, but it smelled of poverty and hard work. So, Obinna said, his voice cold, this is how you have been living, struggling, while I have a mansion with 10 empty bedrooms. We are happy here, Neka said sharply, pouring water into a glass. We don't need your mansion. We needed a father. Happy? Obinna laughed, a bitter sound. Your children just drugged a man and dragged him through the streets. That does not look like happiness to me, Neka. That looks like a cry for help. Neka didn't answer. She knew he was right. I should call the police, Obinna said, pulling out his phone. Go ahead. Adanna challenged him from the doorway. Call them. Tell them your own children wanted to love you so much they kidnapped you. See what the newspapers say. Obinna paused. He imagined the headlines. Heartless billionaire arrests his own children. It would destroy his image. It would ruin his company. The girl was sharp, terrifyingly sharp. Just then, his phone rang loudly. The screen flashed a name, Chantel. Obinna looked at the phone. He looked at Neka. He answered. Where are you? Chantel's voice was smooth, cold, and dangerous. The investors are waiting. You smell like trouble. Don't tell me you're doing charity work again. I had an emergency, Obinna muttered. Fix it, Chantel snapped. If you are not here in 20 minutes, the board will start asking questions about your stability. Do you want to lose the merger? She hung up. No screaming. Just a threat to his money. That was Chantel. Obinna looked at the triplets. They were staring at him with wide, disappointed eyes. Who is Chantel? Zik asked. She sounds like a snake, Kene observed. She is a business partner, Obinna lied. She is the reason you won't come on Friday, Neka said quietly. Go to her, Obinna. Go back to your gold. We have survived 7 years without you. We will survive forever. Obinna stood up. He straightened his wrinkled suit. Part of him wanted to run back to his safe, predictable life. But another part, the part staring at 3 faces that mirrored his own, refused to let go. I will go, Obinna said stiffly. But I will be back tomorrow. He paused at the door, his voice lowering. We need to discuss custody. Custody? Neka's eyes widened in horror. You wouldn't. You kidnapped me, Obinna said, his face unreadable. Do not think this is over. He walked out into the night. His body left, but he left something heavier behind. The knowledge that he was a father. He is angry, Zik whispered as the taillights faded. He is coming back, Adanna said confidently. How do you know? Kene asked. Because he forgot this? Adanna smiled, holding up a platinum cufflink she had swiped from his sleeve during the struggle. People always come back for their gold. But the next day, it wasn't Obinna who came back first. It was Chantel. And she didn't come to retrieve a cufflink. She came to mark her territory. The next morning, a sleek black car pulled up. It wasn't Obinna. It was Chantel. She marched in without knocking, her sunglasses shielding her from the reality of Neka's modest home. She looked at the peeling paint like it was a disease. So, Chantel sneered, ignoring the children, you are the little secret from the village. She pulled a checkbook from her designer bag. Obinna told me everything. It's messy. Men like Obinna don't need children, they need headlines. Take this check. 50,000. Disappear. The triplets stopped eating. Adanna looked at the check. Zik looked at Kene. Get out, Neka said quietly. Don't be stupid. Chantel laughed. He doesn't want a family. He wants his merger. You are just a stain on his suit. That was the wrong thing to say. Adanna smiled sweetly. Would you like some tea, Auntie? To calm your nerves. She held up the jar of Grandma's goat powder. Chantel drank it greedily. 5 minutes later, she began to nod off in the chair. I feel dizzy. That was when the triplets went to work. Zik fetched the leftover porridge. Kene found the sticky honey. Adanna grabbed the itching nettle oil from the garden. 10 minutes later, Chantel woke up screaming. She was covered in goo, scratching uncontrollably, and stumbling out the door. You little monsters, she shrieked, fleeing to her car. I will tell him everything. She sped away, leaving a cloud of dust. Neka looked at her children. She crossed her arms. What you did was wrong. We do not treat guests like that, no matter how rude they are. But Mama, Adanna whispered, she tried to buy us. Their methods were wrong, the narrator whispered to the wind. But their hearts were only defending their fortress. That evening, Obinna returned. He saw the mess. He saw the torn check on the floor. Chantel called me, he said heavily. She said you attacked her. She tried to pay us to leave, Adanna said, her voice small. Is that how much we are worth, Daddy? Obinna looked at the torn paper. In that moment, the numbers on the check looked smaller than the tears in his daughter's eyes. No, Obinna whispered. No amount of money can buy what is in this room. He looked at Neka. I ended the engagement, Neka. I told her I am done with anyone who thinks my children are a problem to be solved. He knelt down. I built an empire, but my soul was silent. I was a coward. I was proud. But I am here now. Neka looked at the man who had broken her heart. If you want to be in their lives, she said softly but firmly, start by showing up. Words are not enough anymore, Obinna. Will you come to Father's Day? Kene asked. I will come, Obinna promised. And I will bring myself. Friday came. The school hall was packed. But when the triplets walked in, the room went quiet. They didn't just have a father. They had Obinna, the billionaire, wearing a t-shirt that said Triplet Dad. He held their hands. He cheered the loudest. He looked like he had won the lottery. And in a way, he had. Chantel went on to find another rich man. But she never found what money cannot buy. Obinna found something far more valuable than his company. He found that a house is built of brick, but a home is built of love. My people say, a man who has no one to call him daddy is the poorest man in the village, even if he sleeps on gold. Obinna had learned that pride builds empires, but only love builds a legacy. And sometimes, it takes 3 little kidnappers to remind a grown man where his true treasure lies.